Hello everyone and welcome to the fifth and final game of the Airthings Masters Finals. It is Hikaru Nakamura versus Magnus Carlsen, and the first four games ended in a draw. They're playing a rapid time format, and okay, Magnus was maybe a little bit better in some of the games. In one game, I think game two he was completely winning. He missed a very tricky idea, but in the end, all he got was four draws, and now they go into Armageddon. And this time, there's a very interesting time control difference, because usually in Armageddon, okay, white always has to win the game, otherwise black wins the Armageddon. But here it is uncertain who will get the black pieces, because in Armageddon it's better to have the black pieces. You can draw and you still win the match, but here you have to bid for it. White will have 15 minutes, and the black gets to bid how little or how much time he wants to have. And interestingly, Magnus won the bid by 1 second. Here I have it somewhere. Let me just check. Yeah, Hikaru beat bid 8:59, so 8 minutes and 59 seconds, and Magnus bid 8 minutes and 58 seconds. So he outbid Hikaru by 1 second, which is absolutely incredible. Like he knew Hikaru was gonna probably go below 10 minutes, which is already quite a lot as you start with 15 minutes, and he knew that Magnus knew that, so he would probably go down to 9 minutes, and then even below that, but he figured it out somehow that Hikaru was gonna go 8:59, and Magnus just put in 8:58. It's absolutely incredible, and it's a huge victory before the first move was even played, as Magnus got the black pieces in Armageddon, and now he only needs a draw to win the match. So let's see how Hikaru does it, and can he win on demand against Magnus with the white pieces. For this task, Hikaru chooses the Reti opening. He plays knight to f3. We have knight to f6 by Magnus, and g3 now. Going for the King's Indian attack, we have pawn to c5 and the bishop to g2. We have knight to c6, castles, pawn to d5, grabbing the full center, and now pawn to d3 and e5, grabbing even more center. Here we have pawn to e4, and now grabbing even more center with pawn to d4. We have a4, stopping b5 at some point, because now the c4 square is looking very nice for this knight. If this knight comes to c4, it's going to be incredibly strong. It's going to put pressure on the e5 pawn, and you will not be able to dislodge it with a move like pawn to b5. So bishop e7, knight to a3, going for c4. We have bishop to e6, and now knight to g5. We have bishop to g4. Of course, you do not want to allow knight captures bishop, so bishop to g4 attacks the queen. Bishop pawn to f3, bishop h5, and now knight to c4. And Hikaru can be very happy with his knight on c4. Not a lot has been traded, or even nothing has been traded over the board. All the pieces and all the pawns are still on the board, so Hikaru can be very happy with this position. And knight to c4 is actually a new move here. The position has been reached before in a very top tier game between Alexander Grishuk and Wesley So in Norway Chess of 2019, where h4 was played. But here knight to c4, new move. So as of move 11, we have a completely new game. And okay, knight to d7, Magnus offers some trades. The knight is attacked here. Knight back to h3. Hikaru wants to avoid any trades if possible. We have pawn to f6, and now knight to f2. Magnus castles and pawn to h4 now. Hikaru will now try to push some pawns to open up lines of attack towards Magnus's king. Bishop to f7, and now just bishop to h3, grabbing this long diagonal. And if Magnus ever decides to trade this bishop for knight, then you might even be able to put your bishop on e6. So knight to b6 offers a trade, and now pawn to b3. Hikaru says, let's trade, but I'm gonna recapture. B captures on c4, and I like my position very much. So okay, Magnus does this. Knight captures, B captures, and the bishop to d6. We have pawn to f4. Hikaru can't just wait and see what happens. He has to open up lines of attack if he wants to win the match. E captures on f4, and now G captures on f4. Now the G file is opened up. and Hikaru will try to use it to attack the black king. So queen to c7, putting pressure on the f-pawn, and now knight to h1, defending with the rook and with the bishop. There was an interesting idea, sort of a tall move, maybe e5 here, and then if f captures, then f5, and the position is just very, very nice for white. For the moment, you've closed down this diagonal, you've freed up the e4 square for the knight, the bishop has access into the game, the queen has access. You might have time to double up on the g file, so might not be such a bad idea. But okay, Hikaru went knight to h1, defends the f4 pawn twice now, king to h8 by Magnus, and now knight to g3. We have queen to f3, sorry, g6 first, we have queen to f3, and now rook 8 to e8, getting all the pieces into the action, king to h1, preparing to put some heavy artillery on the g file, and bishop to e6 now. We have bishop captures, rook captures, and now bishop to d2, connecting rooks, pawn to f5, and now pawn to e5. We have bishop to e7 going after the h4 pawn, and now Hikaru advances it to h5, and he creates some progress here. He now can open up lines of attack towards the black king. G captures on h5, and first rook to g1 before recapturing on h5. We have rook to g6, and now Hikaru played queen captures on e6. The correct capture would be knight captures on h6. On h5, but after queen captures on h5, he allows Magnus a very, very tricky idea, which Magnus missed during the game, but you, however, will not, as you guys are awesome. So feel free to pause the video and win the game for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this wild idea, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight captures on e5. Point being that you want to open up this diagonal, and the problem is now, if you don't capture, the knight is coming to g4, and then it's just going to be a monster there, and if you capture, it's not much better. Just queen to c6 check, and you don't have a good reply. If rook blocks, then you can just capture the knight, the rook will be overwhelmed, and if king to h2, now you play f4. Absolutely stunning move, attacking the knight here, also preventing the bishop from helping out with the h6 square, so rook to h6 will just win the white queen. There's absolutely nothing you can do here. Whatever you do, you just get destroyed. But instead, after queen to h5, Magnus played knight to b4, as this is Armageddon, he only needs a draw, and he doesn't want to spend any extra seconds on trying to find the win, because if you get low on time, there is no increment in Armageddon, Hikaru will just crush you. So queen to f3 goes back, we have knight captures on c2, and rook 8 to b1, knight back to b4, and rook to g2. Hikaru has to look for ways to attack the black king, or to somehow create some winning chances. He does have pressure against that b7 pawn, and he does have the passed e pawn, so it could go well for him. Queen to c6, Magnus quickly offers a queen trade, and Hikaru obliges. Queen captures, we have b captures on c6, and now knight to e2. Remaneuvering the knight here, knight captures on d3, and now rook to b7, putting pressure on the bishop, on the pawn, and on the 7th rank in general. If the rook can come to h2, maybe you will have some success here. So rook to e8 defends the bishop. Now comes knight to c1, offers a trade of knights. We have captures, and now pawn to a6. We have rook to b6, goes after the a6 pawn. Pawn to a5 now, and now bishop to d2, again puts pressure on the a5 pawn, pawn to d3, and now rook captures on g6 first. We have h captures, king to g2, both players start bringing the king into the game, king to g7, and now rook captures on c6. Here, rook to b7 was the way to go, or maybe just improve the activity of your king, but after rook captures on c6, Magnus just gains too much time. We have rook to d8, king to f3, and now rook to d4. Now puts pressure on the c4 pawn. Rook to e6 attacks the bishop. Sorry, rook to e6 would have been one way to go about it, but Hikaru plays rook to a6, and now puts more pressure on the a5 pawn. Rook captures on c4, rook captures on a5, and now rook to c2. Attacks the bishop, bishop to e3, and now pawn to c4. Again, Magnus not looking for a win. Rook to h2 is just crushing here. There's not all that much to do, and capturing on c5 is never really an option because then just pawn to d2. So rook h2 was the way to go. Magnus starts advancing, pawn to c4. We have rook to a7, attacks the bishop, king to f8, and now pawn to a5. Again, Hikaru misses the very nasty e6. e6 is just beautiful. Covers the f7 square. If the bishop comes here, you cover this square, then some checking ideas. It's nothing forced, but it will be enough tactics to hold at least a draw. But the draw isn't anything good for Hikaru, so it's a great move, but it doesn't help his match situation because he has to win the Armageddon game. So pawn to a5. The way to usually do this is to just continue pushing your outside pass pawn, and now rook to a2. Here again, rook to h2 is the way to win. Magnus goes rook to a2, and now we have pawn to a6. We have pawn to c3. Now the two connected pass pawns are deadly. Rook to d7, and Magnus can continue pushing with d2, which is winning, but he goes for rook captures on a6. He wants the he doesn't want to win. He wants not to lose, as he needs to win the match that way. So rook captures on d3, and like I said, both players are down to like a minute and a half, and if you get below the 1 minute mark, then you're just bulleting against Hikaru. That's never really pleasant. So rook to c6, and now bishop to c1. Of course, you don't want to worry about that pass pawn. King to f7. Now comes rook to d7. We have pawn to c2, and now rook to b7, going for that pawn at some point, but also you want to keep an eye on the bishop and the king here. So king to e6, now comes king to e2. We have pawn to g5, creating another pass pawn. F captures, bishop captures, and now bishop captures on g5. Doesn't really do all that much. Pawn to c1, queen, and now rook to e7 check before recapturing. Luckily for Magnus, it's not checkmate. If the d5 square was somehow guarded, it would be checkmate, but he does have the d5 square, and now he has to capture. Bishop captures on c1, rook captures, and now king to f3, and here rook to c4, and he was in this position on move 60 that Hikaru and Magnus agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. So 4 games ended in a draw, then the Armageddon game ended in a draw, which means that Magnus wins the match. And basically, it all came down to, as it doesn't look like they're able to defeat each other at these shorter time controls, because out of the 4 games before Armageddon, Magnus was, like I said, he was winning one of the games, and one he was probably winning, one he was better. He was never really worse, but he couldn't win a single game against Hikaru, and now, even though he was winning throughout the entire game, again, he settled for a draw. For those of you who are interested why this is a draw, it's because even though black can, for example, win this pawn, you will not be able to promote your f pawn. The way to show this the simplest as possible, let's say you give a check here. Now after the king moves, you will gobble up a pawn. White can even trade. You don't have to keep the rooks on the board. White gains the opposition, and you can never promote your pawn. Because you want to kick away the white king and put your king in front of the pass pawn, but you cannot do this, so you have to push the pawn, and now you will just continue doing the opposition, and after, let's say, f3 check, king to f1, king e3, you will do king e1 again, f2 check, king f1, and now after, black is forced to get opposition, because if you play anything else, then white will just win the pawn. So you have to play this, and now it's a draw by stalemate. White king has no squares, so it's a draw. Of course, both of them know this, and after rook to c4, they agree to a draw, and Magnus wins a very, very nice match. He wasn't very happy or very proud of this. He said, I believe, later on in an interview, that it was a very poor showing in all the games, and that he is sure that Hikaru would agree. I haven't seen if Hikaru agreed to it, but yeah, I imagine neither of them are very happy. Even though Magnus won the match, It's 5 drawn games. Not, I guess I don't think he's very proud of that. But yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry about being away from YouTube for like a week. My voice was not working at all. Again, my daughter brought something from kindergarten, as she does quite often, and this one was a deadly one. So it took me a while to recover, but hopefully now I will be well for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other cool games that I've missed because I haven't really been following what's been going on in the chess world, do use hashtag suggestion. I will go over them and I will cover them, especially the cool ones. So yeah, once again, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ravishing Reptiles YouTube, Adam Hamel, Manjunat Nadrapa, Geoffrey Lockwood, and Kerry Smith for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And yeah, as Mikhail Tal, the great, once said, rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. See you soon.